Episode 3, talking quarterback free agency and more of the Dan Snyder controversy. Any update on that? With your host Oscar Montiel and new co-host Arron Faxan next.
Dude, I could jam out to that intro for days.
You killed it, Aaron. But with that being said, welcome everyone to the Golden Truth episode 3. Um, as I stated in the cold intro there, I'm your host Oscar Montiel, and with my new co-host, and yes, you heard me right, new co-host. I found a permanent co-host, Arron Faxan. We're here to discuss more of the Dan Snyder controversy, an update on the investigation, and also we previewed it a, a little bit last week, but we're going to be discussing quarterback free agency. You know, the rumors out there right now circulating a certain player. I mean, if you read the title, you literally see who we're going to talk about in this episode in Carson Wentz. But without further ado, let's introduce my co-host, Aaron. What's up, man?
Technically, everything above my eyes and my IQ. Just kidding. Anywho, wow. So psyched to be your new co-host. So psyched to be here. Looking to talk some free agency, and looking to talk about some other stuff too. You know, we're here to have some fun. We're here to put smiles on faces, and you know what? This is just a modicum of that. It's gonna be awesome. We got you. Intro part 3. No.
Oh, again, my bad. I'm trying to remove the.
No, don't worry, man. Don't worry.
Go
So,
ahead.
for anybody who stuck around for my podcast, Facts Man's Musings on Anchor, I did a little bit of a Super Bowl in review, and it was very interesting when they started. By the way, I wanted to give it like a week to digest and sort of look over what was done. And For the first time, a Super Bowl halftime show, the person who was supposed to do it wasn't totally outshined by everybody else. So that's pretty cool. Commercials were pretty awesome. Oh, overall better this year than it was the past few years. And it was interesting because you look at the way the analysts they talked about LA, saying that LA was going to absolutely destroy Cincinnati. And to me, I almost found this being I almost found the game being almost Mike Tyson and Joe Frazier esque. You know, two teams that were evenly matched, throwing punches and counter punches. And there were times like it was streaky on both sides. When defenses stepped up, you weren't scoring. When offenses stepped up, you couldn't stop them from scoring. And it was amazing to me. Like, kudos to the Rams to have the intestinal fortitude to be able to continue to go and win that championship even after Odell Beckham Jr. went down, because losing a player like that who just makes everybody around them better can really deflate a team. But you look at Aaron Donald, you look at Von Miller, you look at Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson. I mean, these guys rallied this team and really just eked out a very, very competitive win. A lot of people thought it was going to be a lot of people thought it was going to be much less competitive than it was. And that's why I enjoyed watching that game so much. You had two teams, and by the way, like looking at like the first maybe the first few quarters of play, like there was hardly any turnovers on either side. These two teams, with the exception of maybe a couple, maybe an interception and a couple of penalties, played very clean games, with the exception of maybe almost getting in fights with each other over on the sidelines. And let me tell you, it was getting heated. And I look back on this with the 18-week season coming up soon, or the 18-week season being a permanent thing. And I could see these two teams having a genuine head-to-head rivalry out of conference starting based solely off this game. Like, this could be the one case where a Super Bowl sparks a rivalry. And in a really, really good NFL rivalry, you need two teams that could meet regularly. And both of these teams, having been division champions in their conferences and in their divisions, when schedules are made, good teams are put against good teams, bad teams are put against bad teams, just to try to even out the playing field a little bit. When it comes down to it, because this year the AFC North was pitted against the NFC East, I could see before too long having the Rams and Bengals meet again very, very soon in a rematch, and it's going to be a highly anticipated rematch. So look out for a rivalry to start between the Rams and the Bengals. I could see that happening.
I mean, me personally, I don't see. Okay, maybe during the regular season, whenever they have the professional.
That's what I'm referring to.
But like the Super Bowl, I really don't. I mean, I said this, that the Bengals, I will not be surprised or offended to know that maybe they could be a contender, but they are in the AFC, and the AFC is wide open. Like, no one is gonna run away with the AFC anymore. Peyton Manning is gone. Patrick Mahomes, he was an X factor coming into his career, but everyone has figured him out. Lamar Jackson can't stay healthy for all his worth.
I think he could if the offensive line keep him upright.
Yeah. But like, I feel like the AFC is gonna be a hot potato, and I don't know if Joe Burrow, is gonna make it to another Super Bowl, because, like I said, we got the good quarterbacks in the AFC. Most of the young quarterbacks, rather said, are in the AFC.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree in this. You see, every 3 years, an AFC division gets pitted against an NFC division. However, with an 18th week, a team is picked from another division in the opposing conference. I am saying that I think a rivalry could develop in the regular season, because even if they don't meet in the Super Bowl, I think that there is a good chance that the NFL could see this as they had a great Super Bowl. Let's match them up and allow the Bengals to get some revenge.
Yeah.
I see this being a situation where at least 2 more times in the next 3 years in the regular season, they could meet up. I could see that happening, because you have 1 year where the AFC North has to be matched up with the NFC West. Then you have another year where whether they are pitted up against the NFC North or the NFC South, where for that 18th week, they have to pick a team from another conference. And I could see the NFL, for storyline purposes and having people tune in and boosting ratings, that the one team they put the Bengals against that is on a different division, being the LA Rams.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if I ever asked you. What is your thoughts? Obviously we had a full season, a full year of it. Because I remember I wasn't a fan, and I'm still kind of not a fan of the extra game or the extra week. Do you think it's a good idea, a bad idea? How did you feel about having the Super Bowl literally in the middle of February? Like ever since I kept up with football, it was always towards the end of January, beginning of February, and that's what I liked. Like it was at the beginning of February. Now like it felt weird, like watching a Super Bowl a day before Valentine's Day.
Again,
like it felt so weird. Like, what are your thoughts on like the extra game? Do you think it's a bad idea or a good idea?
From a perspective for me as a fan who maybe wouldn't necessarily like so much change, I think it's not the best idea. But my thing of it is this: when you look at interpromotional matchups between teams from different conferences, this is a chance for us to see matchups that we wouldn't normally see. I think. Imagine two teams that you feel like you never see match up against each other. Imagine like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs getting matched up against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. Imagine if that was just happened to be the extra matchup for Week 18. Imagine if that. Out of conference matchups that you don't normally see, except for once every 3 years, will happen more often. And again, alluding back to my point before, that's going to allow better rivalries to come forward. I think that from that perspective, it could be a good thing. And I think from an NFL perspective, from an NFL ratings perspective, everybody, all the fans know that the preseason doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And because of that, a lot of fans don't have patience to watch preseason games because they're like, we have to deal with 4 weeks of just straight up preseason games, which, by the way, not all of them are televised.
Yeah.
When I look at the way television networks are and they're yearning to make more money, I think that this is going to be something interesting to point out. And there's another change in the works too. I didn't read the full article, but I heard that there is going to be a scheduling twist put in with the Monday night doubleheader that comes in Week 1 for next year. I think the NFL Mobile through Verizon has an article about it.
They didn't even do the doubleheader this year, though. They kept it one game.
So I think that I don't necessarily think the reason they did that, I think, was because one of the games, due to extenuating circumstances, got moved to a different day, and we ended up having a Tuesday night game instead of an extra Monday night game.
But well, if you want more of Aaron's thoughts on the Super Bowl, even though he literally repeated what he said on his podcast last night, the link to his podcast is in the description.
By the way, tune in. It's a little this week's on Sunday. This week's topic going to be a little bit different because I went to see a circus that was in town called Cirque d'Italia, and it's really good entertainment for the price. So if you want to hear about that as well.
Yeah. So like I said, Faxman's musings is not just strictly sports. He does what's the term, stand up.
Yeah, it's like a life. I call it
like
almost a life
show?
Experience podcast.
Life experience. Okay. So yeah. So check him out. Like I said, the description, the link is into the description below. Also, check out his Facebook page if you want to chime in on what he should cover. The link to his Facebook page is also in the description. So, all right. Free agency. So free agency. Wow. Can you believe we are actually next Monday is February 28th?
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. I got a doctor's appointment that day.
Am I gonna see you next Tuesday?
Yeah, you will. It's not till it's at 11. So.
Oh, okay. Anyways, But free agency, the new league starts I believe March 14th or 15th, one of those 2 days. I know it's mid March. I know that much. And obviously the talk of the town during that time period is free agency. Who are the hottest free agents? Who are who can teams trade for to make, take that first step, to becoming, contenders, things like that. So obviously Washington needs a lot of things to go their way. But last week we spoke about trades. This week, although I forgot to mention one player in specific to trade for, and now I can't think of him anymore because I actually had him in the back of my mind.
Well, honestly, you'll think of him when we're thinking of something totally different.
Actually, no, it just came to mind. So to wrap up, I guess the trade conversation real fast, Kyler Murray. Do you think it's a good idea to get him? Why or why not? And the reason why Kyler Murray, I'm bringing this up is Kyler Murray. Current, reports have been coming out that he is unhappy with Arizona, either not giving him the extension, not happy with the coaching staff.
His offensive lines cannot keep him upright either.
But here's the thing though, Kyler Murray, he's small. Like he's too small for my life. He's too small, and he has a hot say. He's good in September, October, and then midway through November. But when it comes to the latter part of November, beginning of December, beginning of January, that's when he doesn't step up.
He chokes.
Because he chokes. So I honestly don't think it would be a good idea to. Is he better than Taylor Heineke and what Washington has now? Yes, but
not by much.
Not by much at all. Like I wouldn't trade for him just because he chokes and he got smashed by the Rams in that Monday Night Football game. So
look, here's the thing that I think is working against Kyler Murray here. He actually has good building blocks and a good team around him, and he still can't do well. It is easy to say. It is an easy excuse for a quarterback to say, I don't have enough weapons, or my offensive line is not keeping me upright. He is a quarterback to me that's got big dog syndrome. He's got a big bark but no bite. You can't do anything with it.
Yeah, because if you have DeAndre Hopkins, arguably the best wide receiver out there,
and you still can't get the ball to him.
Yeah. They're actually, and you brought up the offensive line. However, the offensive line is good enough to create run gaps because the Cardinals, the reason why they were winning so many of those games was because their run game was really good. You have James Conner.
Absolutely.
Who else? What's this guy's name?
They used to have David Johnson, but
guys like that. They had Christian Kirk. They brought Rondale Moore. If you can't win with those guys, because they're getting if you have the weapons that they have, then obviously they're a playoff contender. Because last year you can make the argument, granted, looking back at it now, still choked. I mean, who loses to back-to-back backup quarterbacks? Kyler Murray last year or the year prior, 2020, 2021.
By the way, I would have loved to seen Tavon Austin in Arizona, by the way.
Oh, okay. He choked. He choked against a no-name XFL or Arena Football League quarterback that the Rams had at the time, because I remember Jared Goff was hurt. They lost to not even Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers. They lost to a guy named, what's this dude's name? Nick Mullins or something like that.
Yeah, or was it CJ Beathard?
Yeah, it was one of those two. Like, if you lose, and all you needed to do to lock up a playoff spot at the time was win one of those games, and you couldn't do either.
And that could have also gotten them a home playoff game.
Basically. And they couldn't do that. And then this year, They had the number 1 seed in the middle of December, and all they needed to do was win one game, and they would have had it locked up, and it didn't happen. So I don't think Kyler Murray. I don't know if in his contract, because I know that there was something in his contract that talked about that he couldn't make a transfer over to baseball after the time period of his contract was over. I can't remember that, but I remember seeing something that when he got drafted, because I think the NFL wanted to make sure that he didn't go to baseball. But like Tim Tebow did, I think.
Sounds like Russell Wilson-esque over there.
Yeah. So my closing thoughts: Kyler Murray, don't trade for him. He's not worth it. 2019, that whole 2019 draft, not that good. You see Dwayne Haskins, where is he? Being a backup to Ben Roethlisberger, and
actually Mason Rudolph now.
Yeah, that's true. And Dwayne Haskins, he's not even the consideration to be the heir to Ben Roethlisberger.
I could see Haskins leaving Pittsburgh simply because he's not going to get a chance there.
Yeah.
Honestly, send Dwayne Haskins to Denver.
No. I don't think so. I think
Denver needs a quarterback. Maybe Denver can go for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, but I feel like Denver would draft a quarterback, though, to be honest. I mean, they're in the position to trade up and things like that.
Do you think that they need to go into rebuilding?
No, they just need the quarterback.
Yeah, well, if you draft a quarterback when you want to rebuild, not when you want to win now.
That's true. But anyway, that's 2019. Daniel Jones can't stay healthy for all he's worth.
He's worse than Lamar Jackson.
I mean, he's good, and he's beaten Washington, 4 out of the 5 times that he's played them.
Yeah.
So, true. But he's just too injury prone.
But I'll say this: he's riding off the runs of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. But we'll wrap up the trade talk. That was the one player that I forgot to mention last week. But let's move on to some free agency quarterbacks. And here are the list right now, as of right now, of course. And I think we brought Marcus Mariota up last week. I think I said, he would be a solid option. I mean, I feel like he would fit Ron Rivera and Scott Turner's scheme. Just my opinion, though. Obviously, they gotta use him right. If they don't use him right, then this conversation is invalid. But if they use him right, which it's a guy that fits in their system, so why not? He would be a solid option.
RG3.
Yeah. Who else are free? I mean, other than that,
Indianapolis is making a big mistake.
Oh yeah, we can discuss that. But Jameis Winston, if he can come back from his torn ACL in time, which I don't think so. I mean, those are the only 2 hottest, names right now in the free agency market. I don't know if any of those 2 would appeal to you at all.
If it has to be between those 2, Jameis Winston is going to be a better fit, and I'll tell you what. Okay, he wouldn't necessarily be a great fit. But when I see the pattern by which the Washington front office works, I could see them trying to go to Jameis Winston because they're like, oh, he's established. He can win right now. Let's just plug him in. And it just doesn't work like that. You can't just slap on. You can't just. This is going to be such a bad analogy. I'm sorry. You can't just slap on makeup if you're a lady and say, man, this looks amazing. You have to be able to understand the contours of the face.
Oh, you're going there.
I almost feel like I have to. And I'm sorry if there's any ladies in the chat. I'm not trying to be insulting. I promise you I'm not. But you can't just slap on Dakota paint on a car and think, oh.
I mean, it is called the Golden Truth for a reason, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, you can't just paint flames on the side of a car and say, now I can drive fast. Jameis Winston's would be like the flames on the side of the car.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Jameis Winston, I mean, obviously he just turns over the ball way too much, and
He holds on to it for too long.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and here's another thing. This year, before he got hurt, because he obviously got hurt, I can't remember if it was the Washington game or if it was after. I think it was after. He was Washington. If Washington had any a competent quarterback, they could have easily won that game because Jameis Winston was not playing that good. Like until like the very end, where he threw like 3 straight touchdown passes. Granted, like I said, because of Washington's turnovers, but Jameis Winston's not that good. Like
the only reason
the Saints are kicking themselves right now, thinking that Jameis Winston was going to be their future. I mean, they wanted Taysom Hill, but still, like
Taysom Hill's getting unhappy and thinking about leaving himself simply because the Saints won't give him a chance to be a starter. But my thing of it is this is something that I find interesting because I almost see a bit of like Marcus Mariota and Taysom Hill. They're both very similar in that you could run gadget plays and line these guys up anywhere you want.
But Jameis Winston isn't all that mobile. No,
Jameis Winston's not. I'm saying Taysom Hill is, and Marcus Mariota is. I know we're talking about Jameis Winston. The point I'm making is that the only reason why, under any circumstances, that Jameis Winston was able to look as good as he did was because he had Taysom Hill lined up out there as a safety net.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could run gadget play. You could run the ball with Taysom Hill. You could do direct snaps with Taysom Hill. You could throw the ball out there and have Taysom Hill catch it. Dude is like I haven't seen that much versatility since Sammy Boa in Washington in the 50s.
Yeah, but I mean, those are the only 2 names that I could think of because everyone else, Ryan Fitzpatrick, heck no, he should retire. Tyrod Taylor, no. Joe Flacco, if he's still available, no. Aside from that, those aren't the hottest free.
Andy Dalton,
no.
A reunion with Ron Rivera.
No. Oh no.
I know. I'm just messing.
But
that was a joke.
To discuss more of this rumor in detail, so the Colts, what they did last year, so Frank Reich obviously got the best out of Carson Wentz. So what do the Colts do? They trade for him because they say, oh, this guy can fit perfectly in our system. And he flops. In fact, they couldn't win the final game of the year that could have sent them to the playoffs. And I feel like if Frank Reich couldn't get Carson Wentz back to his normal self, he's not worth it. Like, obviously, the Colts are going to, they're thinking of cutting him, and Washington is rumored to have interest amongst others. But I feel like, no, that would not be a good move for Washington.
That would be a mortifyingly horrible move for Washington.
But here's the thing. There is some upside, though. There is some upside. I'm saying it's a horrible move for that reason. However, it could be good for another sole fact. Obviously, he faces the Eagles twice a year. So, maybe he could channel whatever he needs to the motivation to beat the Eagles twice and say, hey, first off, you build a statue of Mick Foles when even though Mick Foles finished the job and won that Super Bowl, we were 11-2 before I got hurt first. Second, he can also say, hey, you guys traded me for Jalen Hurts, who got smacked in the playoffs last year anyway. So, there you go. I mean, I feel like that would be motivation enough, but I don't think, Washington's offense wouldn't fit him. And you can build all the weapons around him. I mean, he had Jonathan Taylor. He had, who was wide receiver? T.Y. Hilton.
Eric Ebron when he was there.
Who else was the Colts wide receivers out there? I know that there were youngsters, so that's why I can. Paris Campbell.
There you go. Yeah.
There was another guy that I really like there.
Like I said, I thought before he went to Pittsburgh, I thought Carson Wentz played a couple of games with Eric Ebron.
No, I don't think he did. So like if he can't win with a running game, and if he can't say, because he had the best offensive line in football.
He did. And
Like,
not only that, they were the most athletic. Like short of Kansas City, they were one of the most athletic offensive lines too.
So like if he goes from the best offensive line in football and a decent offensive line in Washington, meaning he ain't gonna win. He's not gonna lead Washington to win. I think like he would win. He would have win like what? How many games did the Colts win this past year? Like what? 9, 10?
Yeah, I think they were 10-7, and I think the interesting thing about it is, I think that they had. So if I remember the end of the last season correct, they were actually in a good position to win the AFC South, but they had like a total collapse in week 16 and week 18 when they lost that game to Jacksonville, and that knocked them out.
Yeah, because I remember they were red hot. Because I remember they looked dead in the water. I think they lost to Tampa Bay, and then they won like 3 or 4 straight after that. And then all they needed to do was beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they would have been in the playoffs.
They would win their division, I would have thought, like, because Tennessee was also on a slide as well.
Yeah.
Because Derrick Henry was out.
Yeah, and he didn't come back later, like until
He didn't come back to the playoffs, and they still didn't do well.
Yeah. But why would you think it would be a bad idea to bring him? That's because I wouldn't trade for him at all. Like I would not trade for him.
This is the thing to me. Like we went back to talking about what Washington would have to give up for him, and I feel like I don't know. Carson Wentz, he's in a position where, I really feel like the Colts should just keep him. If I'm being honest, I think that he's only been there for 1 year, and 1 year to me is not enough to be able to show what you can do. I think Carson Wentz has to grow into the Indy system a little bit. I think it would take him a lot longer to grow into the Washington system than it would take to grow into the Indy system.
Yeah, but like I feel like at the same time the Colts are like, I think they saw what Carson Wentz did, and they were like, nah, not our cup of tea. So we gotta either play big for one of these big quarterbacks, which I don't think that they would want. I don't think the Texans would trade Deshaun Watson. So either the Colts are hoping they either get a Aaron Rodgers, what's this dude's name? We spoke about him last week too. Aaron Rodgers,
Baker Mayfield, Cam Newton.
Cam Newton's trash, please.
Yeah, he is.
Baker Mayfield's trash too. Get him out of here. Get out of here. I saw. In fact, let's discuss this. I remember you brought up. I think it was like, I don't know if it was on on the show last week, but I think you and I were discussing it at some point.
It was definitely not on the show. It was just you and I over the phone. We were talking about me being on the show, and I was telling you that I saw a video on YouTube that made an argument for why Washington should go after Baker Mayfield.
No. Like, he's trash. Like, no.
He is a choke artist too.
He played. Everyone
You're better off going with Terrell Pryor at quarterback.
Like last year. Okay, I gotta give him credit. He ended the Cleveland Browns playoff drought and even won the Browns a playoff game.
He had David Njoku. That's why he was so good. He had David Njoku.
But yet they have Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr.
Well, not ODBJ anymore.
Well, had at the beginning of the season. They had a plethora of tight ends: Austin Hooper, like you said, David Njoku. and Harrison, or I can't remember if it was Harrison Bryant or Hunter Bryant. It was one of those two. I can't remember which Bryant at this time. But if you can't win, and Nick Chubb and
Lamar Hunt.
yeah, like if you can't win with if you can't win with that plethora of talent, and you say that Odell Beckham Jr. is the problem, and you lose when he's gone, like that's bad on you. Like that proves that no, like Baker Mayfield is just bad, and I don't care if like no, maybe the senior, maybe he's too thick headed to be a first overall pick, maybe, but if he comes here to Washington, he'd be even more thick headed. Look at Dwayne Haskins, because he was in Washington because he had family, family ties here. He was best friends allegedly with Dan Snyder's son, and we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about that pervert here in a few moments. He got too thick. He's too thick-headed. He got too thick-headed. So don't keep those thick-headed egos away from Washington, especially if they're right now trying to get back to what they were in the 1980s, and early 1990s, even though I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah.
By the way, I have a question I'm going to ask you. Hopefully,
Yeah,
I don't know if you're planning for this, but I'm going to see what your opinion is. I saw this article, another article on NFL Mobile, and it talked about one free agent that each team in the NFC and AFC should keep. And there was one thing that you and I talked about last week when it came to Washington, and that was having a wide receiver on the other side to open things up for Terry McLaurin.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happens that there is a wide receiver that may become a free agent and leaving the Los Angeles Chargers, and his name is Mike Williams.
We'll discuss wide receivers in another stream.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
but it's something to think about, though.
Yeah, like this weekly show, like the way that I'm gonna divvy it up, and I think I should have told you off stream, but what I'll explain to the audience members is I don't want to clutter everything up, because I was getting some feedback with another good friend of mine. I was asking him, like, should I cover all free agency things in one big live stream, or should I divvy it up? And he said divvy it up so that way it doesn't become more clustered. And I think good point, because there are other wide receivers out there that are just as good as Mike Williams. So we'll probably discuss other wide receivers in another stream, because I do want to talk more of wide receivers in depth.
Yeah, and but going back, I guess it's a good thing. I just was curious what your opinion was, and going back to your original point, I think Carson Wentz. I mean, yes, there may be an upside, but it's not enough of an upside. I think it's just a bad move for Washington, and I think it's a bad move for Wentz. I feel like Wentz, I don't think he would be able to handle the scrutiny of being the face of Washington.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, it's going to be an intriguing offseason.
I think I'm interested to see if Kyler Murray does leave Arizona, who goes there in his place, because I bet that Arizona could be a good spot for Wentz.
Do you think Tom Brady going to be coming back?
Oh, God.
Because I hear that if he does come back, he may end up going to the 49ers. Apparently, he wasn't too happy with Bruce Arians. Apparently, Bruce Arians worked him too hard.
If Tom Brady goes to San Fran and Jimmy G stays, I'm going to feel really bad for Jimmy G, because at that point, it's like going to the DMV. You can't escape going to the DMV, and you can't escape being Tom Brady's backup at that point.
Yeah, because he was Tom Brady's backup once. The odds of having it happening to him again twice in a lifetime in the span of in a span of a decade, just unreal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another thing. Like, I feel like if you're gonna get Tom Brady, then why draft Trey Lance?
Trey Lance, yeah, it's true. Because at that, I mean, and this is the thing. I almost feel like it's you know what? What impresses me so much about the 49ers as a franchise is the fact that they are able to put themselves in a position to win, yet still rebuild when it comes to Trey Lance. To me, that's impressive. Like, say nothing about the fact that they made it all the way to the NFC Championship with Jimmy G, still allowing Trey Lance to be in a stage where he is learning the ins and outs of the game from watching Jimmy Garoppolo play. Like, I'm impressed by the way the coaching staff did that.
Yeah. But I mean, to wrap up, the trade convo and the free agency convo, and unless I may have missed a few quarterbacks here and there, but like I said, those were, basically Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, and if the Colts do release Carson Wentz, they would, those would be the, top names out there, quarterback wise. I mean,
Marcus Mariota is your best bet.
I mean, unless you do this, let me know if you what you think of this. If Carson Wentz comes here to DC, hypothetical if comes here, but Washington drafts a QB to develop, have Carson Wentz basically give him the Philly treatment. Do you think? And here's the thing: Washington could basically just sign Carson Wentz to like 1 year, a 1 year deal. Like they won't be tied down like Philly was when they gave him that big that big contract and things like that. Do you think maybe
I
bring Carson Wentz in for a year and then draft a quarterback to sit behind him and learn?
I think that's a good idea for Washington. I think Carson Wentz will not think that is a good idea for himself, and I'm going to tell you why. This is exactly what happened when Jalen Hurts was there. Even though Carson Wentz was established in Philly, he got caught under scrutiny, and the fans and the front office and the fan base, they all demanded Jalen Hurts, put him in. I feel like you'd be setting yourself up for a situation where because the scrutiny in Washington is even more severe than the scrutiny in Philly, to the point where if Carson Wentz were to make mistakes, there'd be demand, and I mean a strong demand from an entire community to say, Wentz, you go to the backup spot and bring in the new guy.
Yeah.
I think if you can look at both of these quarterbacks and say, this is our plan as a team. Do not, under any circumstances, pay attention to what the media says. If you have to answer interview questions and they ask about the possibility and they ask about the starting position and how you're playing, you just say, focus on one game at a time. And then, and only then, could you maybe get away with bringing in Wentz for a 1 year deal and having him mentor a drafted quarterback. I also think that you also have to make sure that the salary cap room matches the ability to do that, because there's already an established value for Carson Wentz as it is. I think that if Washington were to go that route to bring him in, I think instead of doing that with Carson Wentz, you might have better luck doing that for Jameis Winston, because I feel like what you'd have to give up for Carson Wentz would actually be higher, believe it or not, than what you give up for Jameis Winston.
Yeah. But, yep. That's quarterback conversation, y'all.
It's golden, my friend. Anybody in the chat say anything?
No, it's right now just two people in the chat right now, and one of those people is me.
Fair enough.
But I guess it's time for the main event of the evening, and that is the discussion regarding Dan the Pervert Snyder.
And no pretzels involved at all.
But yeah, I mean, okay, so here's some updates regarding that. And apparently the NFL wanted, or more backstory. Beth Wilkinson conducted the first investigation on Washington. I I think it was like mid 2020 when everything changed, with their name change and things like that. And when she finished her investigation, she recommended. Now this came out the last month or so. She recommended to the NFL that they strip Dan Snyder of the ownership. Now the NFL didn't do anything about it. They were like, "Nah, she did way too much. She did way too much digging. We'll if something surfaces up again, we'll probably do something different." And obviously the John Gruden situation where he had like what 100,000 of emails come out, and then that's how the Washington investigation got popped up again, was because Bruce Allen, the then president / general manager of Washington, was a part of that text. And then obviously who else was tied to Bruce Allen? Dan Snyder. So then because of pressure, they decided to reopen up the investigation, but this time they decided to bring in a new investigator in, oh my God, I'm gonna Mary Jane White, I want to say, or Mary Jo White or something. I don't know if you watched the video that I sent you. It was like a 20-minute clip.
I did.
Please correct me if I'm wrong about the name, but and she's mostly known for what was the controversy? The Bounty Gate, investigating, investigating Deflategate, things like that. Do you think that she will cater to the NFL, become the NFL's puppet, and say, you know what, we did? Because I feel like the NFL, they didn't like Beth Wilkinson investigation because they wanted to basically just keep it buried because they like to protect Dan Snyder for some odd reason.
They like to protect Dan Snyder because I feel like I feel like Dan Snyder has gotten to a point where he has so much tenure in the NFL that to have bad things surface about Dan Snyder, it would cause the rest of the NFL and its front office and commissioners and owners to be vilified for guilt by association. So I do think because of that, I do think Mary J would be the NFL's puppet. I think that I honestly think that it's a possibility that she could be she could be extorted for what she brings out to the public for her investigation. In that, if you bring anything that's too harmful to Dan Snyder, because we have been associated with him in the past, it's going to vilify the rest of the NFL, and we can't have that.
Yeah. I mean, I want this saga to be over. I want Dan Snyder to be stripped. Like,
it's what's best for the franchise. But even then, here's the thing that I think about too. Dan Snyder, it's obvious he needs to go. But I made this point last episode, and I said it's not just that. Dan Snyder has got people in place in the front office who are going to do whatever he wants to do there, but they're a bunch of his yes men, to a point where I think you have to really evaluate the franchise and see, okay, like, who is best to keep in there. I think once and if Dan Snyder goes, you almost need to completely wipe the team. Maybe I can't believe I'm saying this, considering he's only had 2 years as a part of the team. But Ron Rivera might be the only coach worth saving at this point.
Oh, that's an interesting fact. Why?
I feel like Washington made a decision when it comes to the players on their team to go younger. Maybe it's time they went younger in the front office too.
I mean, they got the front office is. Here's the thing that I have against Ron Rivera, and I'll address some of the chat here in a second. But here's the thing: like, Ron Rivera brought all of his dudes. Like, he brought Marty Herney, Martin Mayhew, and they failed. bringing in free agents, doing rookie things like that. Like they failed their first year together as a trio.
Mm-hmm.
On the business side of things, they do have a young guy in Jason Wright, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like, I want to say he's like in his like mid 30s or something. I know he's young. Like I know he's not that old. I think he was like and he's a African American um business manager or whatever they call that position. They also have um a social media ambassador who's a woman, and at the time, like I want to say 3 years ago, they had a man do that job, so they changed that up. I feel like the front office on the football operation side of things is garbage, but I feel like Washington did good job on the business aspect of things. Now, if it is for Dan Snyder to like keep the heat off of him, then no, that was just a poor that was poor on his part. Oh, look at what I did. you know they say it's an unsafe work environment, but I hired an African American business manager. I promoted a woman to be the social media ambassador or whatever they call that position. um there is like some coaches that are female here. Like, no, I feel like it doesn't
Good
matter.
decisions, but for wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly correct.
And I look at the way the front office is right now, and I'm sorry, but like, it's kind of like you eating a bag of Doritos, and you've got the chip dust all over your hands, and you just wipe them on your pants. Your pants are dirty now. What are you gonna do? We're gonna wash them or not? You need to wash out. You need to wash all the Dan Snyder stain off of the franchise.
Yeah. But I do want to address Jason Alami on the chat. Thank you for stopping in, man. So he says, and this is regarding the Beth Wilkinson comment saying that the NFL brushed off Beth Wilkinson's recommendation of stripping Dan Snyder, but he says that if it was Jerry Jones being investigated, they would and if Beth Wilkinson would have recommended the NFL to strip Jerry Jones, they
They
would
would have
have
done it.
followed through. Your
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
I agree. And I think I think this comes down. It's very interesting. This goes back to the double standard that I was saying, that there are certain franchises that are seen as elite, and there are certain franchises that are not. And I think both Washington and Dallas are at the point where um, both sides are not seen as elite. However, I think Dan Snyder again. The reason that they didn't follow through with the investigation in terms of Dan Snyder is, I really think that it's easier for, like, when you compare Dan Snyder to Jerry Jones, it's much easier for the NFL to detach itself from Dallas than it is for them to detach themselves from Washington. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
And I think it's because of that if the investigation proved to be true in reference to Dan Snyder, then you would have the rest of the NFL being guilty simply by association.
yeah. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Let's. I mean, the way. I mean, if Beth Wilkinson, if they decided not to follow through Beth Wilkinson's recommendation, and they decided to investigate with a whole new investigator, I mean, the best case scenario, the this Mary J. White, or I know her first name is Mary. I don't know um if she says the same thing and the NFL finally like breaks down and says, okay, fine, we'll see. That's the best case scenario. They actually listen to two investigations that say we recommend you force Dan Snyder to sell the team. Oh, fun fact, and I forgot to bring this up. She actually brought up the fact that she actually investigated the Panthers, the Panthers' former owner. So my thing is, maybe there is light, what's the saying? Light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh
Maybe
yeah, maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
yeah. So like maybe she does the job, but we'll see. We'll see. Question though, would you choose Dan Snyder or Jerry Jones?
Can't believe I'm saying this. I never thought I would, but I might choose Jerry Jones. I might choose. I think he has inherited a big. I think Jerry Jones is able to handle a pressure-based situation a lot better than Dan Snyder does, because I feel like Dan Snyder has made good choices, but for bad reasons, in terms of like the name change and various things like that. Whereas I think, even though it doesn't always come across that way, and even though there are times when he may be too hands-on, at least Jerry Jones has good intentions for the Dallas Cowboys organization and for the fan base at large.
I really want Jason to chime in on the chat here. Jason, try to type as fast as you can, because right now there's not much else to discuss. So I want to dispute it, but like me personally, Jerry Jones, I feel like, because here's the thing, and I got this information, and we'll discuss this information when we talk about receiver free agency and potential trades as well, that the Cowboys are thinking of cutting Amari Cooper. Now,
that's a mistake.
Yeah, that's when I heard that, I was shocked. I was like, "Wait, what?" I'm like,
By the way, did you see the that little clip in the Niners Cowboys game where the punter punted the ball and they had to redo it because it bounced off the big screen in the stadium?
Yeah.
That was so funny. I know that's off topic. We're talking about Cowboy stuff.
No, I
get it, but
it's just like, I mean, like, so the way that I see it, like, because Jason and I were talking about it, like, and when he was the first one that brought it, he was like, "Yeah, Amari Cooper is gonna cut." I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "They're thinking of cutting their best weapon." I was like, and Arron initially said,
I think the argument for doing that is that they think their best that they think CeeDee Lamb is their best weapon and not Amari Cooper. And the truth is, it is Cooper.
No, yeah, because they're a good tandem. And if you want to add a trio, you add CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and what's this dude's name? Michael Gallup.
Oh yeah,
they're a good trio.
They're gonna be getting Dez Bryant flashbacks,
basically. But like,
and now he's in Baltimore. Dez Bryant is.
Yeah, but I feel like if Amari Cooper gets cut, that he would be a hot name. And Washington, when Amari Cooper was a free agent after his when he got traded to Dallas didn't even want to re-sign him. Like, they took forever to like give him a long-term deal. So Washington initially wanted to break the bank and get 20 mil. They offered him I think it was like 20 mil or something like that, and he said no. So if Dallas cuts him, I feel like Washington should go after that.
Here's the thing that I think is going to end up happening. I think if that were to happen and Washington goes after him, Dallas would try to bend over backwards and break their own banks and then make him sit on the bench just so that Washington wouldn't have him. If you could have like a Deshaun Watson situation without the off-the-field issues.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I can't believe like they're thinking about like, oh my gosh, that's like Plexico Burress shooting himself in the foot.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Dallas to get rid of Amari Cooper would be the equivalent of them shooting themselves in the foot.
Of releasing Odell Beckham.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Oh, and then to top it all off, like when Dallas got rid of Randall Cobb, because he was doing well there too.
Oh yeah, like there was no like when Randall Cobb was there, he was actually productive. Like I feel like he was basically the CeeDee Lamb,
He was.
just older.
And it was interesting to me that because I feel like Aaron Rodgers had been missing him for a long time, Randall Cobb,
Yeah.
to go to, because he had a chance of leaving Green Bay, but one of his demands for staying was he said, you go out and you get Randall Cobb and you bring him home. That's what he said. Randall Cobb and Aaron Rodgers were a fantastic combination, probably
But
to
like
the level of what Donald Driver was in his prime, and you could even say it was rivaling what Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers have right now.
yeah, but like Randall Cobb is back in Green Bay and he didn't do much.
That's because they didn't have Aaron Jones all year, a running game to back him up.
Yes, they did. They had, and even if they didn't have Aaron Jones, they had AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon was actually pretty decent.
Dillon was pretty decent, but he was streaky. Like there would be certain times where he would run, and he'd run really well, but then you put him up against like interdivisional teams, like teams inside the NFC North, and he would struggle a little bit.
Okay, so Jason Alamio said that the Dallas Cowboys need to keep Amari Cooper and use him more. Agreed, because here's the thing, and I forgot, Jason, I forgot to I think you forgot to mention this. Like, because he was blaming, or not blaming, but he was saying that Kellen Moore didn't use the pass game or Amari Cooper the best way. And here's why. And I think I feel like Kellen Moore's offense is more run first, not pass first.
You need to use wide receivers in the run game.
But like, no, but that's what I'm saying. But I feel like Kellen Moore, because what did he do? He would use Zeke and Tony Pollard, and only when they're like in 3rd and long, or when they wanted that, play downfield, that was the only time that they used wide receivers.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And
so I feel like it's more of, and I'm agreeing with Jason here because he said this: Kellen Moore's the problem, and Dallas are too loyal to let this offensive coordinator go.
Yeah, I think they are, and it's interesting. It's just very interesting how this is the case for this kind of thing to happen. Like, I think it's getting to a point where if they do let him go, and I mean, if Washington were to take him, my gosh, they'd be unstoppable on offense. They'd be big play machines.
Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, whoever the slot receiver is going to. I mean, if Curtis Samuel can stay healthy, he can be that slot, the slot guy or the gadget guy.
I'm telling you, Mike Williams could be a good slot receiver. Mike Williams.
But we'll see. I don't know. Ron Rivera, I don't have faith. Ron Rivera saying, we'll explore all options. He said that last year, and we ended up with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Curtis Samuel, who was injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he didn't do anything else. I mean, he brought Charles. He at least he fixed the offensive line because the offensive line was decent. Let me see what else. Aside from that, nothing else of note.
But by the way, you brought up the centers and everything. I don't know if you saw this, but the other thing in the article that the NFL Network was talking about was how the Ravens had a guy named Mike Bozeman who was becoming a free agent, and not only was he a good center, but he was also used at defensive end.
Yeah.
So that's somebody that if the Ravens don't keep him, Washington could go after, and he could fill that spot where Trent Williams used to be.
Yeah. So Jason Alameda is still discussing about the Amari Cooper.
We appreciate your input, by the way, Jason.
Yeah, he was stating that like even when Kellen Moore would call play passes, they would use guys like Noah Brown and Cedric Wilson. And Cedric Wilson he's actually pretty solid, but they used him way too much. And of course, Dalton Schultz, who's a tight end, but they used him more as a wide receiver too in the red zone instead of Amari Cooper.
By the way, I'll ask you this question, and maybe Jason can comment about this in the chat. But what do you think about making designed quarterback runs for Dak Prescott as long as he slides and protects himself? Because that could also open things up for wide receiver runs and
I mean, the only
Ezekiel
thing,
Elliott and Tony Pollard.
like I said, I think you said it best. If he can, protect himself, because he's pretty good when he runs. Like, he gets like big gains.
Like they always say, because the one thing that was interesting was I think 2 years ago, they had an offense where when they got inside the 10-yard line, you had to worry about everyone, including Prescott. So I think if they can get back to that as well, I could almost see the Cowboys being somewhat like Baltimore was the year that they were rushing for close to 300 yards a game.
Yeah, but like you said it best. If Dak Prescott, because I feel like Dak Prescott is more of a passer than a runner.
I think he can run when he has to, and I think he's got deceptive speed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree with that. But oh wow, but already y'all, we crossed the 1 hour mark. I would have liked to make this a longer episode, unless you got anything else to address.
I do not personally. I will say on the next episode, I'm going to try to look up this article again.
Hold. I'm trying to find the. Oh, he said Prescott is mobile. He can move quickly, but protecting himself is a big issue. And he's one of the quarterbacks that needs an offensive line
that can move, probably.
I mean, he has the offensive line, because the offensive line is actually pretty decent. Like, they're one of the top offensive lines in the league.
Oh yeah,
I mean, they're filled with old people that always get hurt, but still.
Well, to be able to have the number of combinations they've had and still do as well as they did.
Yeah, and if they're still able to, provide run gaps for Elliott and Pollard, then.
Not to mention getting some of the wide receivers in the running game, to me, I think would be a good idea.
I mean, I feel like they could use maybe like CeeDee Lamb in those jet sweeps.
Yep, I think that's what they need, honestly. Because the other thing too is Ezekiel Elliott is also a really good pass catcher, and people don't realize that he has that talent.
But alrighty, y'all, that was episode 3 of the Golden Truth Podcast. As soon as I want to end this, now the chat is active.
Now the peanut gallery joins in. I'm just kidding.
You know what? What would you think of doing this as a 3-man booth, Arron? Because I think
let's bring Alamio in.
If Jason can, if we can, because he lives in the West Coast, so it would have to depend on him.
We can reach out to him and see what he thinks. If he's able to make the time, then we can give him it.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Yeah, he's even though he's a Dallas fan, he's really cool. I mean, we give each other hard times about our channels, but I respect him, even though I hate baseball. But he does hockey content, and I like to tease
some light on other sports stories.
Yeah, so, but
I'm down, man. I'm down.
But I do want to address some final chats here before we head out of here, as soon as I can find them. Oh wait, he texted them to me, but sorry, if you text it to me, it's not valid. That's the rule, Jason. You gotta put it in the chat. Anyways, already, we're out of here. We'll think, maybe Jason. Oh, okay. I was like, oh, so you decided to fire? I told you, Jason. You can text it to me, but if it's not in the live chat, it doesn't count.
Yeah, because how am I supposed to know what you said?
Exactly. But already, y'all. Let me see if I can. Of course, my laptop.
Jason, you're cool, brother. We just give you a hard time. We got to do it sometimes. We got to bust you a little bit. It's just how we be.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Bro,
But
you're good. You're good.
alrighty, y'all. That will do it for the Golden Truth podcast. Oh man, it's just I remember that I have you in my right ear, and then I have the YouTube video on the YouTube live stream on my left.
Sounds like you're getting some feedback, even though you're really not.
But alrighty, y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe to my channel if you're new. Granted, I don't know if people are watching aside from Jason, but also make sure you guys check out Faxman's musings. Links are down there below. He'll be discussing. Aaron, help me out because I can't.
It's I will be discussing a circus that I went to see called Cirque d'Italia, and it's a really good entertainment for a really good price.
All right, so you guys make sure you guys check them out. It's on Sundays, right?
Yes. I experimented on doing episodes on other days, and that one just seemed to be the most advantageous.
Yeah, and this is a podcast, y'all. So this will be on the podcast platforms. I'm also taking a page out of Aaron's book. Haha. I'm actually uploading each episode on Sunday on the podcast platform. So wherever you have your podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple Podcast, Anchor,
Breaker,
Spotify, things like that. It'll be on Sunday, so look forward for an upload. But alright, y'all, we're out of here.
Peace.